right. Why don't you introduce yourself and where you work, and we'll kind of start from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
My name's Shannon Riggs. I am the director of animal care / veterinarian at Pacific Wildlife Care in Morro Bay.
Yeah. And how long have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there since I think I started January of 2013. So
It's been a while, huh?
been a bit, yeah.
Yeah. I did a little bit of research on you because I knew you were up in the Pacific Northwest, kind of working up there when you kind of got started, right?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So
I have worked up there.
yeah.
But
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think I read a little bit like you were working with raptors up there somewhere, and then came down here.
I have a group of friends of mine in wildlife rehabilitation and myself started a group called Bird Ally X that manages a wildlife facility up in Humboldt County, and we do some like education and outreach and stuff like that too. So maybe that's what you were thinking of. But I have also worked. I started in Davis, and then I moved to Lindsay Wildlife Museum in Walnut Creek. So maybe that's it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did the Raptor Center at UC Davis. I worked there
Nice.
as well. Yeah.
So that's where you went to school and all that stuff.
Davis. Uh-huh.
My wife did a year there, and then she's like, maybe not animals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was doing the animal science for a year, and then she came back and started nursing. So
Okay, well, I was kind of the opposite.
really?
I kind of started at thought maybe I was going to do physical therapy. I even thought about being a dentist for a while. I'm
Yeah.
like, people. Ugh.
exactly.
So I kind of went the opposite way. Yeah.
Yeah, because they can't talk back to you. I mean, animals.
Well, that's true, but they also can't tell you what's wrong with them.
true.
So
Yeah. So what got you started in that? What made you make that left turn or right turn, whatever, and go the animal route?
well, I guess I knew I wanted to do something with medicine because I always liked biology and biological sciences. So that's why I kind of started down the physical therapy. I started out in biomedical engineering, just kind of designing prosthetics and stuff. But quickly lost interest in that, and I don't know. Just over the course of time, I thought in the beginning that can I really handle seeing sick animals and seeing them suffering and stuff like that? But then I don't know. People are icky to
Hey,
me.
I'm an ultrasound tech, so you're preaching to the choir. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
I mean, the things that happen to me, like if a mammal poops on my pants, or a bird doesn't really faze me, but if a human crapped on my pants, I think that would be a little bit of a problem for me. And that might ruin my day. So I don't know.
I've definitely had that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was not a good day. Nope. Nope. Yeah, that and blood and fluid and wound.
Yeah, we got all that.
Yeah. So you went that route, and then did you you kind of wanted to focus on birds? Is that correct? Or
Yeah, I did. I kind of started that route in veterinary school. Birds are fascinating to me. They're
totally.
They fly, they're covered in feathers. There's so many different kinds of birds. So yeah, I really wanted to go down that route. But of course, I started out thinking I was going to do pets because you don't even realize until you get later on in vet school, there's so many different directions you can go. And then after vet school, I did an internship for a year at Louisiana State University. Excuse me. And I worked in their exotic animal department. It was bird zoo exotics. And of course, that service also saw all the wildlife that would come in. So that was when I really got interested in wildlife. And then after that, I got a bird and exotic residency at Davis. That's a 3-year program. And they also saw all the wildlife that came in. And then they're also associated with the California Raptor Center. So I got to see a lot more wildlife. And that's really what I became interested in. And then I was lucky enough to get a job in wildlife after my residency, and then it's just kind of continued on from there.
Yeah. So what was it about the raptors specifically that just fascinated you? I mean, I agree. I'm not saying, but I'm just interested, like what brought you to them specifically?
Well, I guess because they were there. Honestly, the big part of it was that because the California Raptor Center, they just see raptors. So It was just exposure. And I just got used to seeing them. And I did a few volunteer things before I went to vet school too, where I was interacting with raptors. Like as an undergrad, there was a raptor center at the university where I did my undergrad degree. So I got exposed to them early, and they're just really impressive animals, and they're really pretty okay to work with because they're big. They're bigger than most birds, and you can do things with them. You can take x-rays, you can do surgery, you can do all the things you would with a dog or cat, really, because they're pretty tough and they can tolerate it.
Whereas like the little birds can't really.
Well, they can.
They can a little bit.
Yeah, it's just, when you take x-rays, it's a lot more difficult to see what you're doing. And, of course, surgery becomes a little bit more risky, too, just with anesthesia and a tiny animal.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can do all those things. And as I've learned, I didn't know in the beginning that you could do all those things with different types of birds. But, yeah, I love all kinds of birds now. It just raptors were kind of my introduction into wildlife.
So why don't we just define what a raptor is, just so for people listening, and what different kinds of birds those are.
Okay, well, it would probably, if you were talking to an ornithologist or something, that might be something a little different. But for me, I would consider a raptor to be like hawks, falcons, owls. I might even toss turkey vultures in there for our purposes, just, kind of a meat-eating bird.
But bigger, right?
Yeah, most of them, you get your little kestrels and merlins and sharp-shinned hawks that are not much bigger than a scrub jay, really. So they're pretty small. But, up to a golden eagle, which can be
pretty big,
15 pounds,
Yeah, would like a raven or a crow be considered a raptor as well?
They're not. They're actually they're passerines, which are technically the group songbirds are in.
Oh, okay.
So they're predators for sure, predators and scavengers, but they wouldn't consider them raptors really.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out here. That's why I always ask.
No, sure.
we call them Dolly and Waylon out here.
Really?
So my wife calls them. There's two of them. So I was just curious because we see them all the time, and they're actually really fascinating. Too, they they can remember things.
Oh,
grudges.
They're so smart.
And what was I gonna say? What are those other ones? They probably aren't considered either. The green. They're right here off of Templeton. The green and they have the big ones in Australia. The green and white and black. And they steal stuff. What's it called? Oh my gosh.
Green and white and black.
Yeah.
And they steal stuff.
They're not mockingjays, but it's like something like that. They're like magpies.
Oh,
magpies.
Okay, yes. Yeah. They're related to crows.
Related to crows.
Yeah, they're corvids as well.
They're so beautiful.
They're amazing. Yeah.
I see them all the time off of Templeton Road where my in-laws live, and they're always back and forth. And during COVID, I was mowing the lawn, and they would just wait, and then they'd come in.
Get the bugs.
Come get the bugs. I'm like, look at you.
Yeah, they know.
So fascinating. Okay, so let's so when you get something in like that, like I know recently you had both a hawk and the California or turkey condor or condor?
The California condor.
California condor. So when you get those in, what is the first thing that you do? Let's start with the condor because that was pretty awesome.
Okay. Well, I mean, in general, when we first since, the high path avian influenza has come around, we've kind of developed a new kind of triage protocol where the types of birds that are potentially infected with the virus are kind of triaged outside before we bring them in.
Gotcha.
And it's really pretty not very specific. We just kind of look at the bird and make sure they're not showing any potential respiratory signs or neurologic signs, which are the things you look for with avian influenza. Mm-hmm. So once we're satisfied that they're not showing obvious signs of that, we bring them into the clinic, we weigh them, and then we do, we just kind of observe them for a little bit. So if they're having trouble breathing or if they're obviously bleeding profusely or something like that, that's going to change how we do things. Mm-hmm. But if they look stable enough, we'll go ahead and just do a quick physical, physical exam. Just look them over head to toe, check their eyes, all their limbs. If they seem cold, we'll take their temperature, look in their eyes, look in their mouth, just check everything over really quickly. And then from there, we kind of determine what kind of diagnostics we need to do, and if the bird is going to be able to tolerate that today, if we're going to have to set back and wait and let him chill for a day or so, and then we'll do it next day. If he's going to need any medications like antibiotics or pain medications or fluids, because a lot of these birds have been, injured or sick for a period of time before they come in. It's not they get hit by a car and then automatically come in.
Right.
So they've been down for a while and they're likely dehydrated. So we almost always give them fluids. And then, set them up in the appropriate enclosure if they need supplemental heat. We've got incubators. If they need oxygen because they're having respiratory difficulty, we've got a cage we can pipe oxygen into.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we've got a lot of options. We take x-rays if we need to, and we think the bird's stable enough. We draw blood from all the birds that are big enough, and just to get a real quick idea of their overall general health status.
Yeah, like a baseline.
Yeah.
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 That's kind of the nuts and bolts of the beginning.
So kind of similar to like a human. Like
Sure.
you just kind of take everything and you're like, okay, what's my approach now? Kind of thing. And you mostly do like x-rays and stuff. And is there any other testing other than blood that you guys go through? Or like imaging?
Yeah, we definitely take a lot of radiographs, x-rays. Almost every animal that comes through gets x-rays because, like I said, they can't tell us what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of going on a hunt
Right.
for things in a lot of cases. So, and wild animals hide their illnesses, so they could be a lot sicker than they're letting on. So we just kind of have to start looking for things. We also usually do a fecal sample to look for parasites. Parasites are super common in wild animals, and while it's not often the primary cause of why they came in, can be a contributing factor to their problems, and especially when they're in captivity and they're stressed and their immune system isn't working as well as it should be because they're stressed, the parasites might go nuts and become a bigger problem. Yeah.
Have you had that happen? You're like, oh no.
Yeah, I mean, not usually, I guess, because we tend to look for it on the front side, and if we find them, we'll give them medication to treat it, so it doesn't become a bigger issue later on.
Right. So then you do the imaging and you kind of make a plan of like treatment, right? And then how long do you determine like, the goal is to get them back into the wild, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so you kind of make a treatment plan and you kind of base it off of how long that'll take, based on their health status kind of thing.
And a lot of, we definitely want an animal at the end that's going to be able to function normally in the wild. And a lot of that has to do with what kind of injury they have or illness they have, and also what species they are. A bird like a red-tailed hawk can deal with things a lot better in care than something like a Cooper's hawk. I mean, red-tailed hawks are just really pretty mellow, and they're tough birds, but Cooper's hawks are really flighty and stressy, and they just don't tend to do as well in captivity. So something that we might treat a red-tailed hawk for, we might not be able to treat for in another species just because of the way they are and how they handle captivity.
You're like, I'm trying to treat them less a little bit, but still get the same result.
Yeah, or even not treat them. Honestly, because some types of birds, like birds that are in the water constantly, like loons or something like that, if they have an injury that would prevent them from being able to be in the water, you can't do that.
Right.
Because if they're not in the water, they're not going to eat normally. They're going to get dehydrated. And while we can deal with that to a point, they're also not, they're going to develop secondary problems by being on land because they're just not built for that. And they get basically like bed sores like
Oh, I see. Yeah.
pressure lesions from resting on parts of their body that they shouldn't be resting
Oh,
on.
yeah. I'm very familiar with those.
Oh, great. Lucky you.
I'm not proud of that, but yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. So you were talking about the hawk. Why don't you talk about the hawk that you had in, which is kind of a really interesting story that you had on the blog, and because it was a bald eagle that brought it into its nest, right?
Oh gosh,
That one?
yeah, that one.
Oh, was that one a problem one or what?
No, there was just a lot of interest in that bird.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, there was just a lot of people checking on it, and we actually had a gentleman that was filming various aspects of his rehabilitation to make a documentary of his own.
Oh.
So yeah, I guess this has happened before a couple of times. You've seen on social media that an eagle brings a nestling red-tailed hawk or something to its nest, presumably to feed it to its babies, but the baby hawk is, making feed me noises, and the parents are just like, oh, I guess I'll feed you too. But then eventually, the eaglets got to be much bigger than the hawk, and they booted him out of the nest. So he ended up on the ground and was collected and brought to us for care.
But someone was observing that the entire time.
A lot of people, I think, were observing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of people were paying very close attention to what was going on in that nest. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he came in pretty quickly after he was booted from the nest. Yeah.
That was an interesting one because he got booted from the nest, and then if I remember correctly, the tail was kind of broken a little bit or something, right?
Well, that actually happened in care.
Oh, okay.
Because as he was little, he didn't really have much of a tail when he came in.
Yeah.
He was very skinny, so he obviously hadn't been competing for food very well with his giant brother and or sister or whatever, and he had some little wounds on his face and head,
Like peck marks or something.
probably.
Yeah.
So, we took him into care. He started eating and feeding himself really well, really quickly, but he was also kind of a nut. So he was red-tailed hawks, like I said before, they're usually pretty mellow.
Yeah.
But this bird was like bouncing up and down and just really being crazy in his enclosures. So he ended up kind of damaging his own tail. So that had to be repaired before he could be released.
Which I thought that process was kind of interesting. I didn't know that. So why don't you go through that process of, is it called imping?
Imping.
Okay.
Yeah, is the shorthand for it's short for implant.
Oh, okay.
Implanting. But yeah, it's a really old process. I mean, falconers do it all the time, and they've probably done it for hundreds of years. It just basically involves taking feathers from, a quote donor.
Yeah.
And cutting them to size so they fit, the inside of the large flight feathers of a bird are hollow.
Right.
So you can cut the donor feather, cut the recipient feather at the same level, put a little bit of a splint type thing. I use like bamboo skewers because they're really lightweight and they kind of bend versus wood, which will snap. And you put one end of the skewer in the donor feather, one end of the skewer in the recipient feather, put some 5-minute epoxy from the hardware store to glue it on, and just stick them together.
And so my first question is, you have feathers hanging around to do that?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
A ton. Yeah.
You have a ton. Okay. So where did those come from? You just find them?
I mean, we have a fair bit of animals that come into us that do not survive.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if I have birds with nice feathers that have to be euthanized or die for any other reason, as long as they don't have any obvious contagious disease or anything like that, I often will collect the feathers so we can maybe use them down the line for someone else.
And do those have to be kind of preserved, or they're fine, or?
I do put them in the freezer because a lot of the birds that come in, like I said, they have parasites. A lot of them have lice, ectoparasites. So we put them in the freezer so the ectoparasites don't run rampant, and
In the feathers?
Yeah, we still preserve the feathers nicely.
Nice. So you have like a freezer full of feathers and stuff.
Yes,
You're like,
literally,
yes,
absolutely.
I believe you. So how did you learn how to do that technique? Because I think I read somewhere that you learned from someone that you already mentioned it, but from the falconer or someone that did falcons.
Yeah, my first job after my residency was for the Oil Wildlife Care Network at UC Davis, and I was the clinical veterinarian for the San Francisco Bay Oil Wildlife Care and Education Center in Fairfield, and which also does aquatic bird rehabilitation there. So I had a patient come in. It was a black-crowned night heron that had been tangled in fishing line, and he was fine other than several of his flight feathers had been damaged, and he wasn't going to be able to fly like that. It was going to take months for him to naturally molt them. And that's a species that is really stressy in captivity, so we want to be able to get him out right away. So I started contacting people at the Raptor Center where I had worked before, and they mentioned I should contact Dr. Bill Ferrier, who at the time I think was running the lab animal department, but he was also a falconer. So I got in contact with him and said, hey, I have this heron that I was wondering if you might come and show me how to imp this bird. And he said, oh, yeah, he was totally down. He was really into it because he had never imped a heron before. Yeah. Of course, that was the first bird I'd ever done. So, yeah, we had plenty of saved heron feathers for that type of bird, and we were just able to repair his feathers. We kept him in care for a week or two afterwards just to make sure the implant stayed and didn't fall out, and they were lined up well, and he could fly normally, and he did great. So,
it takes that quick, though.
Oh, yeah.
Really? How quick does it work?
Well, I mean, 5-minute epoxy. So within 5 minutes, as long as the glue sets, the feathers should be okay. I usually, like I said, like to keep them at least a week afterwards just to make sure that nothing's going to fall out immediately. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a really pretty quick turnaround. I usually do it on our birds when they're imminently going to be released. So it's kind of the last step in their process. So they don't get the chance to damage their feathers again while they're in captivity, which could happen. Yeah, but long enough that I know they're going to be okay once they get released.
Right. For some reason I thought something had to grow together, but you're like, no, the epoxy is great.
No, it's basically, I've heard a lot of people liken it to like hair extensions.
Oh, okay.
Which I've never had, but
I mean, either. But that would make sense, though.
Yeah, it's
that
just
would
kind
totally
of
make sense.
The feather is not alive at that point,
right?
So it's just or even like acrylic nails or something like that. Just putting something together. Yeah, and then they'll just molt those feathers out normally.
That's so crazy.
It's really cool.
Sounds really cool.
It's really gratifying because it's like you go from a really ugly looking wing or tail to beautiful in just a few minutes.
And they can like basically fly better, right?
Yeah. That's...
Do you have to be specific on what feathers you use, like in where you put them? Like say like if you were to take a wing feather and put it in the tail, that's not going to work.
No,
right?
No
Right?
way.
Yeah.
No, they need to be kept in a really specific order, and ideally, I mean, some birds, they're really variable in how big they are. Like a red-tailed hawk can be 1,500 grams or it can be 900 grams, so almost twice as much. So yeah, you have to kind of fit the size to the bird too. But
you're like taking it from, you're like have a before kind of picture or something, or you know how long they are, and then you take it from something like that.
Yeah, or I usually have like the whole wing or the whole tail. And often the birds haven't broken everything. Yeah. So there'll be like a normal feather still there. So I can like kind of compare the donor feathers that I have with the remaining feathers that the recipient bird has. So I know that the size is going to be okay.
I mean, yeah, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I want to ask you about it because it's just, I was like, I didn't know you could even do that.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I really like to do it. It's fun. And we do this under anesthesia.
Right.
But that's not necessary. I mean, falconers do it all the time without anesthesia. It's just a lot less stressful for the bird, I think. It's less handling and manipulating to just knock them out and
Knock them out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the falcons are much smaller than the hawks, right? So
a lot of them are.
yeah. So I'm sure.
But they're also kind of crazy to handle sometimes. I mean,
I would think that too, right? Yeah, but I'm like, that guy that you had help you, I'm sure it's a little easier going to a bigger animal than a smaller animal, right? From a falcon to a hawk versus the opposite way.
yeah. I mean, some of those falcons are pretty big.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. And so let's go back to the condor. How did?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming, because I read on the blog that didn't need to happen, but you just had to like kind of rehab him in general, right?
Well, we actually only had that bird like overnight.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, you guys made the news though.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, it's kind of
anything we can do to get this,
no, it's great.
get our
though.
name out there. Yeah, I mean, the Fish and Wildlife brought that bird to us because we were close.
Yeah.
Normally they would go to the Oakland Zoo because that's where their big condor recovery program is.
Mm-hmm.
But we just happened to be closer, and the bird was down, so they brought him to us, and we just examined the bird. We took a quick x-ray, and it did look like he had some little flecks of metal in his GI tract, which is a really common problem for California condors because they're scavengers and they often eat, gut piles that have pieces of metal after they've been shot. After
Another animal has been shot?
Yeah.
Got it.
Another animal has been shot. And
Yeah. I hope I was shooting condor.
Oh, yeah. Someone would be in for a big fine if that were the case.
Exactly.
But yeah, the condor will scavenge an animal that has been hunted, and hunters, what they usually do is they just leave.
Field dress it, yeah.
Yeah, field dress. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the word.
No. I've done it before. So.
Okay. And so yeah, we just put the bird. We put a catheter in and gave him IV fluids overnight, and gave him a dose of drug that helps bind up the lead that's circulating, because presumably that's what it was.
Yep. Well,
based on our brief exam and everything else. So, and then in the morning, Fish and Wildlife came and transferred him to Oakland.
Gotcha. Yeah, those birds are crazy. There's a burnt out tree in my father-in-law's house, and they like to the condor, or I think it's a turkey vulture actually. It's a turkey vulture. Yeah, and they like to put their babies in there.
Oh yeah,
they come every year.
Oh, that's cool.
And we'll like peek in on them, then they hiss at us, and we run away. So, but my kids during COVID, that's what we were doing. They laid eggs, so we saw the eggs. They were like, "Oh, cool."
That's
and then
pretty
they
cool.
hatched, and then they flew out.
Wow.
And we saw them teach them how to fly, and
wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, they're not really cute babies, but
I mean, they're super fuzzy.
Yeah, they are fuzzy. You're like, how does that turn into that? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, it was really interesting because I think one didn't survive, which was kind of interesting because I was like, the mom's sitting on it, both of them, obviously not equally, I guess, but it wasn't a big space.
Yeah.
Either.
I mean, that unfortunately that happens a lot with the larger predatory birds, that they'll have more than they can take care of usually, just so they can kind of select for the stronger one.
Mm-hmm.
Select for the better genes, I guess.
That one was definitely feisty.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come in every year, and it's like around May, and they have their babies. And,
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So what recently have you been working on at the clinic that's kind of been interesting?
Oh gosh, what has been interesting? Let me think. Well, it's kind of slow this time of year. We are starting to get, so in the fall, a lot of the seabirds migrate back to the ocean.
Right.
When they nest inland in like freshwater lakes and stuff, and then they start to come back. So we're starting to get more grebes, which are highly aquatic. They're sort of like loons, but they're one of those very aquatic birds that never leaves the water unless there's something wrong with them. So we've been getting a few of those. Usually they're just skinny, super emaciated. It's often hatchier birds, so they've come from the lakes to the ocean and they just haven't figured out how to catch fish yet. So we just kind of fatten them up. Hopefully they'll learn a little bit about, I mean, we don't have live fish obviously, but we kind of float fish in the water so they have something to sort of chase and catch.
Yeah.
And then give them another chance We've got, let's see, we have a coyote right now
Oh, cool.
who is also a young of the year animal who had pretty severe mange,
Oh, okay.
which is also pretty common. So he's recovering from that right now. He's growing, he was basically had almost no fur, just
Oof.
super crusty,
Yeah.
nasty skin, but he's regrowing all of his fur now. So we're going to transfer him to another facility for a little while because we don't have a great coyote facility. Our facility is really very small. So we're going to transfer him to another center that has a bigger enclosure because he's still young and needs to learn how to hunt and
Yeah, right.
needs more space for that. And then he'll be transferred back here for release.
Okay.
We've got, let's see, we've got a great horned owl who is getting close to release. She was
Those are so cool.
She is a monster too. She is a huge bird. She's 1,500 grams, which like 3 pounds is all. But she's a monster. She's
I think those are so cool looking owls,
she is
man.
very cool, and she's very mean. And I can't wait to get rid of her. But she's recovering from a broken wing. She was hit by a car.
Yeah.
But she's doing really well, and hopefully after Thanksgiving she'll be able to leave.
Nice.
And we've got a handful of pelicans. I think we have 4 pelicans right now. They all had fishing line injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of that going on right now.
Yes, tons. So that can be pretty minor. It can be very serious. We had one of the pelicans who had fishing line just wrapped super tightly around her right wing to the point where she had lost a lot of circulation to the wing beyond the fishing line, and she has a couple of really big scars where the fishing line had been, so it's kind of limiting her ability to extend her wing. So that is getting better, though, and I hope that with her continuing to exercise herself, she's going to be able to take care of that.
So it's not like a human, as far as, I mean, we can kind of, like, because I'm just thinking of it to ultrasound, because that's what I deal with. I deal with arteries and veins in the legs. Yeah. So, like, when someone has, like, ischemia, you know, and it goes too far, then it's like, it's hard to save the toes.
Sure.
You know, is that something, the same kind of thing with the pelican?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a concern in the beginning.
Yeah.
For a while, but she was on, we were doing just warm compresses to try and stimulate circulation, and we give drugs that help perfusion. Yeah. And there's also some topical stuff we can put on to help deliver oxygen to the tissues.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, she didn't end up losing any part of her wing, or nothing was.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It was just that scarring that's the problem now.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did. I was kind of surprised actually that she turned it around.
Nice.
Because her wing was super cold and edematous, and it was just really scary for
I know. It's like you got to catch it like quickly, or else it goes.
Probably another day she would have been toast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. That's excellent. And then do you deal with any of the other animals that come in, like as far as mammals and stuff go?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we get one of the most, I think it might be the number one animal that we get is possums.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We get a lot of opossums, and we're still getting babies even this time of year. It's ridiculous. It's very late for that. But, you know, yeah, because opossums come in the mothers can have up to 13 babies.
In one litter?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my gosh. That's so many.
13,
that's more than pigs.
I know. They have 13 little nipples in that pouch. Why 13? It's a strange number. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Anyway, so we can sometimes get them in groups. If, you know, a mother gets hit by a car or something, we'll get a pouch full of babies. We can get 10 at a time, you know. Mm-hmm. So we just get a lot of opossums. We get raccoons. We get squirrels. We actually this year got an interesting species, a Mojave desert squirrel, which is endangered. And it was injured out in the Mojave Desert at a construction site. And the biologists that worked there asked us if we could take a look at her and treat her for any injuries that she had. And they like flew her in a plane because she's
Really?
yeah, because she's an endangered species. So yeah, she got the VIP treatment.
Nice.
And yeah, she turned out to recover really well, and she got returned to her site. And they had a little camera on this artificial burrow that they made for her, and they saw her going in and out. So apparently she's been
Doing good.
doing okay.
Nice.
Yeah. And we get the odd coyote or bobcat or gray fox.
You had the badger
Squirrels.
in there somewhere.
Oh, the badger.
Is the badger still there?
No,
No.
the badger was
Got
released.
released.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big story. He's all cute and all dressed up.
He's yeah. I've got a picture of him the day he came in when he was super down and super dehydrated and very skinny, and his little face is really cute. But then like after a couple of weeks, I got a picture of him. He's just like like super angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he also turned it around pretty quickly. It was so we don't get badgers very often, so we contacted another facility that deals with them a little more often to just kind of get an idea of what things we should look for to know that he's ready to be released.
Yeah.
And one of them was, the ability to dig. So we had to we took this big it's probably like 4 by 6 foot fiberglass tub that we have, and we put it in his enclosure and filled it with dirt. And basically by the time we turned around to leave, he had already dug in the dirt. He was so pumped to have dirt to dig in.
That's so cool.
And his enclosure was just a disaster after that. But yeah, he was, eating very large prey items. We had, some dead ground squirrels and some dead rabbits even.
Mm-hmm.
And he was totally going to town on those.
He's totally happy about that.
Yeah. And then we got a good video of him when he finally did get released, of just digging, just like going to the base of a tree, and he just started digging a hole between the roots. So I mean,
so
he
cool,
knew
though.
what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be rewarding. I mean that's
for sure.
You're like, oh man, you were in my care for a little bit, and then you're kind of doing what you're supposed to be doing animal wise.
Exactly. Yeah, that's definitely the goal. Always.
Yeah. So with all these different animals, has it been challenging? Because you said you worked with a lot with the raptors, but like all these are completely different cases, and they have their own challenges. Just as like what I do, like I'm like, what do we do with this person or that person, or what do I tell the doc? Like I don't know. It's kind of borderline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to have a base knowledge on a whole kinds of different animals, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the baseline, there's a lot of similarities between dogs and cats, and
right.
Yeah. So, and then just from that, it's just time and experience. Yeah. Because you don't learn a lot of that stuff in vet school.
No, they don't tell you anything.
No.
They just barely get you out, and then you're like, I know nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. Because you're like, this is like a really unique case. This isn't like anything in the it's not textbook. It's
Yeah, and just talking to other people who have had experience like that, and yeah, just.
But you have people that you can turn to, like the squirrel guy, but the badger people, and you said the condor went up north, and
Yeah, California's really lucky that it has quite a lot of wildlife rehabilitation facilities and lots of good experienced people. So yeah, we definitely reach out to our colleagues when we experience something that we haven't before. So yeah, it's a big network.
And then does anything that can't be rehabilitated go to like a zoo or anything? Because I know when I go to zoos, they're like, oh, this animal was injured and they can't be released in the wild, so we've kept it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, I always hear those people, it varies, across animals, but how does that work?
I think for me, I don't really feel great about taking a wild animal and putting it in captivity.
Right.
So I'm not a big proponent of that. We do obviously have some education animals in our care at Pacific Wildlife Care. And I think it's just a very specific scenario where I feel like that's an okay thing to do. Like all of the new birds that have come into our education program since I've been here have been young birds that haven't been out in the wild yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have had injuries that are going to make them non-releasable.
Mm-hmm.
So that I still, kind of feel a little bad about taking that potential wildlife away from them, but they're not going to be wild, and they've never been wild.
Yeah.
So they kind of don't know what they're missing, I guess. But yeah, taking an adult animal who has been out in the wild, has been free, has been flying miles and soaring, and has a healthy fear of people,
Yeah.
then I kind of don't feel that great about putting them in a captive situation.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely happens. Just try to limit it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want to do. You want them to be wild. I mean, honestly, but I just didn't know like if there's any case like that as far as like what came through or anything like that.
Yeah, we have a long-eared owl named Oberon and an American kestrel named Pip, that both came into us as young birds with severe injuries. Pip had a shoulder injury, and Oberon he ended up fracturing both of his wings, and they just didn't heal appropriately.
Yeah.
So we added them to our collection. But yeah, the vast majority of times the animals have to be humanely euthanized.
Right. Which is, a super bummer too.
Yeah, it is a super bummer, but in a lot of cases it's like you're relieving their suffering because they can be fixed.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because they when we were living in Palm Springs, they had a bunch of birds in that Palm Desert zoo out there.
Oh yeah.
The Living Desert or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had a bunch of stuff, like a lot of birds actually, in the cases. And I was like, I wonder, and they were all like, yeah, this bird's like injured, and this, and I'm like, yeah, that looks, oof,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what's better.
Right. Yeah.
So I know, are you guys moving? Are you guys going to new location? How's that working?
We are supposed to be moving. Yeah. Last I heard, well, we have property.
Yeah.
We have a 10-acre plot out in San Luis Obispo at the corner of Buckley and Esperanza.
Okay. Yeah.
And we are, the last I heard, going to break ground the beginning of 2025 or spring of 2025.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that will be really nice.
That's a nice spot and centrally located.
It's central, yeah.
Yeah. So let's, for like this back half, why don't we go over like what people can do as far as like taking care of wildlife, or the do's and don'ts of what you should be doing, because I know like there's a few things on there like don't use poison, like stuff like that. And then let's start with that, and then I have something else too also on top of that.
Okay.
So like what can people do to support the wildlife, but also like here we have gophers and we don't use poison. We just have the little traps and it's all good. So like with stuff like that, like I use traps. I would never use poison here. But is there anything else that the public should know as far as like what to use or not to use when doing stuff like that, or just to help local wildlife?
I mean, yeah, I just don't use poison. I think is the biggest thing. I mean, it's, no matter what you do, I know they've come out with new types of poisons that are supposedly not going to affect predators or things further up the food chain, but there are still other types of non-target animals that could get into it. And yeah, I mean, we definitely don't see as much of that sort of thing, like rodenticide toxicity, as we used to. So I think things are changing.
Good.
But yeah.
Or is there anything else that people are doing you're like, oh, they should probably know?
The big thing, and this is kind of a controversial thing because people have really strong opinions one way or the other, is outdoor cats. We have probably about 15% of our total patient load come in because of cats. And
they are cats or because of cats?
No, because of cats.
Okay.
Yeah, either parents are killed and leave a nest of baby birds, or the cats directly
Oh,
attack
yeah.
them. I mean, right now we have one of the opossums that we have. Its tail was broken and its whole left side was ripped open
Oof.
by a cat.
Jeez.
And yeah, it's remarkable how many different species cats bring in. And I know people love their cats and they want their cats to have the best life possible, but cats just aren't meant to be in the wildlife chain.
Yeah.
They're just
Totally.
and just the amount of devastation we see from outdoor cats is really unnerving because it's something that could be prevented.
Yeah. I mean, there's cats everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
And especially outdoor cats. Definitely. Yeah, I don't know how you would, and just feral cats too in general.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you. I mean, a lot of people try and get them vaccinated and spayed and neutered, and but there's just so many cats.
Yes, there's so many.
There's so many.
I don't know what the solution is. It's really difficult because I don't know. We just, my husband and I we had a stray cat in our yard recently, and it took us. He had obviously been in a home before, but we took him. We started to get friendly with him, and it took us a couple months, and finally we brought him in the house.
Yeah.
And one of the things people are always like, oh, my cat just can't be stuck in the house. He would go crazy. This cat could not care less about going outside now. He is happy to sit on the couch and just lay on pillows and be a vegetable all day. So
my cat definitely wants to get out, but
Does
I'm like,
he?
no.
Good.
No.
Thank you.
No. Because they were outside for a little bit, and then her sister got hit, and we're like, yep, you're inside now. So it's like, because this road is like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I'm like, but she hates it. But it's like, no, like, you're going to be hanging out inside.
Yeah,
safe.
there's so many bad things that'll happen to the cats beyond what they can do to the wildlife, too. I mean, we hear coyotes every night where we live, and the cars and getting in fights with other cats.
Oh yeah, she's had that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big problem. I didn't think of that because there's just feral cats just everywhere.
There are.
They're just everywhere.
Yes.
Especially here down in Sunken Gardens area.
Oh, yes.
And people feed them.
I know there's a colony down there.
Yeah.
I've seen people taking food out there.
There's just so many cats.
Yeah, what do you do?
I don't know. I don't know what you do about that. But yeah, that's definitely a problem for sure. I didn't think of it. And what else could people do other than, I don't know about that. I don't know how we can keep all your cats inside.
Yeah, good luck. I mean, that's not going to happen. I understand. But
Yeah, no. But it's good to know. Definitely. I didn't even think of it like that.
Yeah, it's a big chunk of our caseload for sure. What else? I guess.
Is there anything like with birds related or anything like that?
I mean, there are pros and cons with bird feeders. Obviously, it's really nice. I know people love to put their bird feeders out and watch the birds, and I'm totally down with that. I totally understand that with that, but I think it's important that people clean their bird feeders on a regular basis as well,
okay.
because there are lots of diseases that can be transmitted at bird feeders especially in the winter, when there are lots of birds congregating at one place to get the limited food resources.
Yeah.
So taking your bird feeders down probably at least once a week, and just
soapy water or something?
Yeah, even like a dilute bleach solution or something, and rinse it off really well before you put it back out.
Yeah.
Because bird feeders can be a big disease transmission problem. Let me think. What else would be good for people? I think one of the big things that we deal with, well, it's been getting worse, is people looking online and getting information about how they can help these animals on their own.
Oh, geez.
Dr. Google.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't do that.
Thank you.
Don't do that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I get the patients all the time. They're like, I have this. I'm like, you don't know anything. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like, Dr. Google is in
full effect. Yeah.
So the people will actually try and do that. They'll try and actually
Oh,
like treat the animals
Yeah.
with whatever.
Yeah, we have, people bring a dove in that has like an open fracture and they put neosporin on it because they thought that would help. And
Jesus.
yeah, just
No, bring it
and
to the
like
professionals.
yeah,
Let's just do that.
we do know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for a long time, and yeah, we do all sorts of continuing education. We try to stay up on the new things. We, have our network of other people that we can bounce ideas off of. So yeah, we do know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just remarkable what you can find on the internet.
And I can assume that sometimes when that happens, it might make the animal worse. Or
Yeah.
more often
Oh,
than
yeah.
not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, at a minimum, you're delaying care. And
Yeah.
I mean, this dove that had an open humerus fracture, if it had been brought in the day of, might have been fixable. But now it's been 3 days with the bone sticking out, and neosporin slathered all over it. And yeah, now it's not going to be fixable. Or animals that are fed an inappropriate diet, like I haven't at where I work now, but in previous jobs, people that get, baby barn owls that have fallen out of their nest box, and they keep them for a week or two, feeding them hamburger, which does not have any sort of nutritional value, and you
What
get
are these people doing?
birds with pathological fractures, which are fractures that happen because their bone density is not appropriate because they've just been getting hamburger and they haven't been getting any calcium or anything in their diets. So yeah, people can do a lot more harm than good.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases.
Yeah, that none of those sounds good. So
No.
no. So the phone number that people can call, is that 24 hours? How does that work?
Well, it is. There is a voicemail that is 24 hours.
Okay.
We don't man it 24 hours, unfortunately.
Sure.
We can't do that. But I think from like 8 to 7,
Okay.
it is either. It depends on the volunteer that's working that day, honestly. We have some volunteers that like to check voicemail, and some volunteers have the line come directly to their phone. So
okay.
just depends on the volunteer. Sometimes you'll get a voicemail. Sometimes you'll actually get to talk directly to a person.
Yeah.
But yeah, we man that 7 days a week.
7 days a week. Nice. Mm-hmm. And then, so if someone finds an animal, any animal, are there any animals that you guys won't take?
Yes, we are not permitted to take adult deer.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Because they're very dangerous to themselves and to everyone else. So we usually have to refer that to Fish and Wildlife.
Okay.
We are not permitted to take mountain lions,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with,
That's fair enough.
or bears. Mountain lions and bears we cannot take, and then we don't take marine mammals because our marine mammal center is right next door to us, and
they'll take it.
They manage them.
They'll take it. Okay. So anything else, you guys will mostly take.
Oh, yeah.
And then you will. So how does that process work? They make the call, and someone else will come from your facility, or
Well, in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
one of our first questions is usually, do you feel comfortable transporting the animal? Because that's easier for us. But yeah, we do have a big network of transport volunteers throughout the county.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So yeah, a good portion of the animals are brought in by our own volunteers.
Okay. Sweet. And don't treat the animals yourself.
Please
don't do that.
I know, as much
Please
information.
don't do that.
I'm sure you find great information on Google, but yeah.
Yeah, let the
no.
professionals handle it.
Yeah.
They'll do a better job, and the outcome will be better. I promise.
Yes.
Let's see what else. And what about like domestic animals like dogs or cats? Does that go somewhere else, like woods and stuff?
For sure.
Yeah.
Woods,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like here, the dogs are just wild. They just roam. They're
Really?
everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. And people just pick them up. No, I'm serious. Like I think I've had like 5 or 6 people just either dump them or pick them up here.
No kidding.
Yeah, outside my house here.
Wow.
I'm like, please don't dump them in front of my house.
That's sad.
And I'm like, because it's like the first stop you can make
After the freeway.
after the freeway.
Uh-huh.
And and then someone just pulled off the freeway and picked up a pit bull, and then they decided to stop here and let him out. I'm not even joking. Like, and we're like, what are you doing? Like,
He just found the dog on the freeway and decided to bring it at least off the freeway.
and then just right here, but they didn't
Wow.
live here.
Wow.
And I was like, please don't leave them. I have kids. Like, please don't leave a wild pit bull. I'm sure he's nice, but
Yeah.
I don't want
That's
them.
bizarre.
There's so many wild dogs out here. I mean, it's crazy.
Huh.
Yeah. And so, and even the lady that came to get him was like, yeah, don't do that. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it, and I didn't, because that wouldn't come off very well. But okay, so domestic cats and dogs, those goes to the woods, but everything else other than what you mentioned before,
Yeah.
can go.
Yeah.
And that's currently in Morro Bay,
Yeah. It's still in Morro Bay.
but sometime next year it might be in maybe.
I mean,
Construction's
who
always
knows
a
how
big
long that's
question
going to
mark.
take, but yeah.
Okay, sweet. And
I think our lease is up at our current facility in 2026, end of 2026. So hopefully it's going to be before then.
yeah, definitely. So before we kind of wrap this up, where can people get more information? And I know you guys do outreach programs and stuff too, right? Mm-hmm. So where is that all located and happening?
Well, our website is pacificwildlifecare.org.
Mm-hmm.
So any information that you need will probably be found there. You can look at volunteer opportunities. You can look at donation opportunities. I think there's surely ways that you can get in contact with our education team if you're looking to have, a program done at your club or your school or whatever.
Okay, so you come to schools and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, but the
Right,
education team does.
Right. Yeah.
With our ambassador animals. Yeah.
Nice. And you guys bring animals or
Yep.
just
Yep.
whatever you guys have?
Yep, we've got, let's see, we've got a couple of red-tailed hawks, we've got a couple great horned owls, we have the long-eared owl, the kestrel, we've got a couple of opossums, we have a raven, a pigeon, a gopher snake. That might be it.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot to
Yeah,
bring.
it's a good, nice variety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids like it. And
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure my kids would love that. I mean, I think the hawks are so cool looking, man. They're everywhere around here.
Yeah.
And they just, between that and the magpies, I think both of those birds are so
Yeah,
cool and
magpies
fascinating.
are very cool. Yeah.
And they're just stealing stuff. And
Super smart.
super smart.
Super smart.
Anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I just it's been a really cool opportunity working in this county. It's been different than the other places that I've worked. It almost feels like small townish, and
Yeah.
it's just, I feel like we get a lot of support from the community, and just it's nice to hear like people, that, oh, I didn't know you were even here. And yeah, here we are, and this, spread the word. And yeah, it's just, people are great here, and I think they want to do the right thing for their wildlife because it's such an important part of living here. There's a lot of wildlife around.
There's a lot of
and
wildlife,
I think
yeah.
Most people appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, and there's all kinds of different stuff going on. I mean, definitely up here in North County, there's a little more wildlifey than maybe in San Luis, but you still get, there's always, I always feel like there's like on Facebook, there's like, oh, we saw a cougar or a bobcat or whatever.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law is always telling me like, oh, there's a bobcat on my property today. And he's just watching them.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And like, they're really small, like smaller than you would probably think, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
And you've worked with a couple of those, right?
Yeah.
How was working with that?
Not fun.
No.
I mean, they're not. They're
No.
pretty. I mean, yeah, the nastiest cat you can think of, but then 3 times as big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, again, we don't have like a great enclosure for something that size.
Yeah.
So it can be a little tricky working with them, but yeah, we get a lot. Most of the bobcats that we have ended up treating have had mange as well, and that's something that kind of relates back to the rodenticide, and because one of the theories is that the predatory animals get exposed to low doses of rodenticide in the environment, and then that depresses their immune system, and they're more susceptible to get mange because they can't fight it off.
Yeah. You don't deal with deers, but have you seen any of like that chronic wasting disease or anything like that?
Not yet.
Not
no.
yet, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do take fawns, but we don't.
Oh,
take,
okay.
We don't take adult deer, but yeah, know it's in California now. So
It definitely is, and I didn't know if that was an issue yet or anything. I'm seeing deer everywhere right now.
Yeah.
Like crossing the streets everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just drive slowly. Big bucks.
Yeah. There's a couple of dead ones on 41 when I drive to work every day.
I know.
So,
It's like they just, it's unfortunate, really. Okay. Anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap this up?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, it's been great.